My name is Jason Moore. I'm 34, and I was married to Claire Whitman, who was 30 at the time. We were together for 4 years before it all unraveled. What I'm about to share is how I managed to vanish in plain sight. It all began at a Saturday morning corporate mixer. One of those mandatory, let's meet the new hires and applaud the promotions type of events. I was one of the brokers receiving a major bump in rank, moving into the senior tier at the firm where I'd steadily built my reputation. My personal portfolio had exploded, and I was on track to reach my first million by the time I hit 27, well ahead of most of my peers. That day, Claire arrived on the arm of none other than Todd Branson, my biggest rival for the next partnership. He was smug, always playing it safe, which meant he never had catastrophic losses, but his clients' returns paled in comparison to mine. And he knew it. His resentment was a quiet but constant storm brewing just beneath the surface. Todd was the type who didn't handle being outshined. I disliked him from the moment he walked through the firm's doors. During his own promotion speech, just a step up to broker, he opened with, "Good morning. I'll be the top producer and a partner within 2 years. Watch me." The room fell into an awkward silence. It was like someone had dropped a wet mop in the middle of the welcome mat. One of the senior partners stormed over, grabbed Todd by the elbow, and dragged him into a nearby cubicle. We all heard what followed. "You want to keep your job tomorrow?" the partner barked, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Then get out there and apologize for that arrogant nonsense before you lose the chance." Todd did go back and apologize, muttering something to the partner afterward, and then disappeared for the rest of the day, without Claire. She'd been left behind like an afterthought. I was called up last to receive my promotion. I gave a short, appreciative speech, made the room laugh a little, and announced lunch would be on me at Casey's afterward. The applause felt earned. Afterward, one of the senior partners asked me to do him a favor, drive Claire home. I walked over, introduced myself properly, and explained the situation. She smiled, amused, and joked, "Careful, I might be the Wicked Witch in disguise." I laughed. "I doubt that. More like a genie or fairy godmother." She burst into a full laugh, then confessed she was technically Todd's cousin-in-law and had been dating him casually. But after his behavior that morning, she said she was done with him for good. After I dropped Claire off at her apartment, we both chuckled when I pointed out that my condo was just on the other side of her building's fence. She looked over, smiled, and asked if we could grab dinner sometime, somewhere away from the office crowd. I said I'd like that. We exchanged numbers and went our separate ways for the day. Back at work the next morning, Todd swaggered in like nothing had happened. His cubicle had always been next to mine, until now. He glanced over, probably to hurl another of his usual backhanded remarks, and froze. My space was empty. He turned just in time to watch a maintenance guy painting my name on a new glass office door. The realization hit him hard. He didn't say a single word to me that day. In fact, that was the last time Todd ever said anything nasty to my face again. I called Claire that evening, and we made plans for the weekend. We had a fantastic time. Over dinner, she told me Todd had blown up when he called to ask how she got home from the party. When she told him she'd left with me and didn't want to see him again, he hung up. She hadn't heard from him since. We dated for about 6 months. Then she got a career offer, a promotion she'd worked hard to earn, but it required her to move out of state. We had a beautiful farewell dinner, spent one last unforgettable night together, and then said goodbye. Well, kind of. 2 years later, Claire came back, this time with another promotion under her belt. One of her first calls was to me. We met up for coffee, reminisced about old times, and updated each other on our lives. I admitted I'd dated around, but nothing serious. None of them were her. She said the same. I told her about my promotion to full partner and how Todd quit the moment the announcement was made. Claire laughed and called it exactly what it was. Typical Todd. A legend in his own head. Then she added something that stayed with me. "Watch your back, Jason. Todd doesn't lose quietly." We started seeing each other regularly. What followed was an 18-month courtship filled with careful steps and growing affection. Eventually, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. Before the wedding, Claire and I both agreed to protect what we had built individually. We drafted a prenuptial agreement. It was fair and straightforward. Everything we owned before the marriage remained ours. It also outlined strict terms about fidelity and abuse, plus custody details for any future children. Our wedding was elegant, but not over the top. The reception was filled with joy, laughter, and dancing. We honeymooned on a stunning Caribbean cruise, Antigua, St. Kitts, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Every moment felt like a dream. When we returned, I surprised Claire with a gift, an 80-acre property outside the town of Fair Bend, about a half hour from my office and even closer to hers in Cedar Ridge. The house had been purchased months earlier, solely under my name. I had quietly prepared it for us. I wanted a place to grow a family. When she was ready, she was enchanted by it, especially when she saw the horses grazing near the fence. One bay gelding walked right up to her, practically claiming her as his own. Her eyes lit up. I carried her over the threshold. She burst out laughing. Every room was empty, furnished only with giant poster-sized catalogs and showroom mock-ups. The kitchen had brand-new appliances, a fold-out table, and 2 chairs. The bedroom? A mattress and box spring on the floor, lit by 2 tall lamps. That was it. I told her to furnish the house however she wanted. She turned to me, grinning. "Well, you nailed the essentials," she said. "I'll handle the luxuries." Then she pulled me to the bedroom. Clothes went flying. The mattress didn't stand a chance. For a while, things were great. We had our share of fights, but the makeup intimacy was always electric. We laughed, we built our routines, and life was simple, until it wasn't. About a year and a half into the marriage, Claire began to change. She grew cold, withdrawn. She didn't laugh as much, didn't reach for me at night. We had a blow-up argument, over nothing. Afterward, she stopped coming to bed. She said she needed space. Then one afternoon, she walked in glowing. She was smiling like the sun and nearly skipping across the floor. "I have news," she beamed. "We're going to be parents." I asked how far along she was. 6 to 8 weeks, she said proudly. At the time, I smiled, congratulated her. But later that night, something gnawed at me. That night, as I lay in the guest room. Yes, I'd started sleeping there after the last blow-up. I couldn't shake a creeping realization. Claire had just told me she was 6 to 8 weeks pregnant. But that didn't add up. We hadn't been intimate in nearly 3 months. I asked her again, casually, how far along the doctor said she was. 6 to 8 weeks, she repeated without hesitation. But in my head, the math didn't lie. She denied me intimacy for over 2 months following that ridiculous argument. I knew then something was very, very wrong. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed a plan. The next morning, I woke up feeling off, physically this time. There was a burning sensation, sharp, unmistakable. It didn't take a genius to recognize the warning signs. I knew what it was. I'd heard enough stories from buddies and colleagues. I headed straight to the health clinic. After a full screening, the results came back, a double whammy. Gonorrhea and chlamydia. My heart sank. I listed my recent sexual history. There was only one name, Claire. No one else. The clinic staff was kind but firm. They need to speak with her too. I requested a brief delay, just 5 days, so I could prepare. When I explained she was my wife, they agreed. I drove home in silence, the weight of betrayal sitting like stone in my gut. I stopped by the pharmacy for the prescribed meds, then returned to the house and quietly moved the rest of my belongings into the guest room. I relocated my dresser, hung my clothes in the closet. It was clear I was creating distance. Claire walked in just as I was hanging my last shirt. She looked confused. "Why are you moving your stuff? I thought we were past your little meltdown." I stayed calm. "I've got an infection," I told her. "Something contagious. Until it's cleared, I don't want to risk harming your baby." She blinked. "Is there something I should be worried about? And what did you mean by your baby, not ours?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "Think about it. You'll figure it out soon. But for now, I'll be staying in here." That was the moment I began my exit strategy. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rage, humiliation, heartbreak, they all tangled into one sharp knot in my chest. But I knew better than to act out. I had a plan to put together. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to vanish and take control on my terms. I decided 2 things immediately. I wasn't filing for divorce until the child was born. I wasn't going to let Claire, or whoever the father was, serve me papers or take me by surprise. I needed time to move in silence. The next morning, I called in sick. Then again the next day, and the one after that. I told the firm I was battling a virus and needed rest. Meanwhile, I was preparing to disappear. I thought back to a childhood memory, something silly, but strangely brilliant. Back in gym class, we played hide-and-seek in the school auditorium. One day, I didn't actually hide. I just circled the room, then sat right back where I'd started, in plain sight. No one thought to look there. I wasn't invisible. I just blended in. That became my strategy. I would hide in plain sight. By Friday morning, I had quietly packed all my essentials and booked a 2-week stay at a discreet extended stay hotel. It wasn't fancy, but it gave me space and anonymity. From there, I contacted a real estate agent and began prepping my property to be sold, without Claire knowing. The initial inspection was set for the following Thursday. She'd learned soon enough that I knew everything. And when she did, I knew exactly how it would play out. She'd accuse me, twist the narrative, blame me for what she did. That was Claire's flaw. She never took responsibility for anything. Even now, she likely believed that if I suspected the baby wasn't mine, I must have cheated first. So be it. Let her believe it. I was 2 steps ahead. What she didn't know was that I'd already set the wheels in motion to protect my assets. My financial advisors helped me liquidate part of my portfolio. My lawyers ensured everything was legally moved into a trust, airtight, untouchable, and out of reach. I wasn't being reckless. I was being thorough. By the time Claire found out, she'd be standing in a house she didn't own, with a child that wasn't mine, and no idea where I'd gone. Once everything was in place, I drove out to a rural area just 20 minutes from Fairbairn. An Amish family was selling their smaller farm after purchasing a larger one nearby. The property hadn't been updated in years, no electricity, no plumbing that met code, but that didn't matter. I wasn't looking for comfort. I was looking for cover. Because no one in their community had bought the land, the Amish family had listed it publicly. The price? A steal. 92 acres, isolated, with the kind of terrain and privacy you just couldn't buy near the city. But I wouldn't purchase it under my name. Instead, the buyer was my trust, the same trust Claire knew about but couldn't touch. Everything I did was traceable, but not to me directly. That was the beauty of it. Back at the firm, I quietly sold my partnership stake. It was handled through legal proxies. I emptied my personal bank accounts and moved the funds. My stock portfolio transferred to the trust. I met with 2 lawyers, 1 estate, 1 criminal, to make sure it was all legal and protected. They confirmed it was. Harsh. Maybe. But legal? Absolutely. In the span of a week, I made myself disappear, on paper, in life, and in Claire's future. To blend into my new environment, I made some changes. I grew out my beard, stopped shaving, wore plain clothes like the men in the Amish communities around me. In just a month, I looked like I belonged. I parked my car in the barn behind the house and kept it covered. I even bought a traditional Amish black buggy and left it visible near the house. My neighbors brought their horses to graze on my land. I did small work for them occasionally, labored when needed. No one asked questions. The following Wednesday, the health department arrived at our former home, accompanied by a sheriff's deputy. They were there to inform Claire of her diagnosis. I delayed their visit for just long enough. They asked her to list all recent sexual partners for public health tracking. At first, she tried to claim it was only me. But when they saw how advanced her infection was, far beyond the early-stage diagnosis I had received, it was clear she wasn't telling the truth. She broke under pressure and eventually gave them 4 names. One of them? Todd Branson. The others? Unfamiliar. I hired a private investigator to look into them. And then, just like karma snapping its fingers, bad things started happening to those names. The investigator moved fast. Within days, I had full reports on the 3 names Claire had given aside from Todd. All 3 had one thing in common. They weren't just casual hookups. They were connected to her professionally or socially, with a clear overlap in timelines. But the real twist came with Todd. He'd been the center of so many issues in my life, first professionally, now personally. But karma had a funny way of handling things. According to the report, Todd had recently been caught in the crossfire of a drive-by shooting. He survived, but not intact. Let's just say, he'd never be the same man again. Word was, he was now permanently unable to perform. The other 3? Each had reportedly been the victim of unrelated muggings. Random, brutal, and sudden. None were fatal, but all left lasting consequences. And me? My name never came up. Not once. I was never contacted, never questioned. As far as the world was concerned, I was just a man who had quietly disappeared. Meanwhile, the house Claire and I once shared was listed on the market. My trust, through my realtor, bought it back. She had no idea I was the buyer. To make the transition easier, the new owners, offered Claire a premium for the furniture she'd picked out. She accepted the money and moved out. She ended up buying a small place in Grand Rapids. From my new home, I watched her life change from a distance. She drove past my property more than once, likely headed to prenatal checkups. She didn't recognize the house anymore. Not with the buggies, horses, and the bearded man tending the field. She never looked twice. After some thought, I decided not to wait until the baby was born to start divorce proceedings. Through my lawyer, I filed the paperwork. We sent it with supporting documentation, medical reports, paternity analysis, and the prenuptial agreement. Claire fought back at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. When the judge saw the details and reviewed the agreement, it was over. Claire fainted in the courtroom. Her lawyer didn't say a word after that. The final ruling awarded her $1. That was it. A few months later, I heard she had suffered a miscarriage. I didn't celebrate. I just felt empty. It was a life that would have grown up surrounded by lies. After the divorce, I stayed put in my rural hideaway. There was something peaceful about living off the radar. I'd gotten used to the quiet, the simplicity. I expanded my land by purchasing the adjacent farm when it came up for sale. A newlywed Amish couple moved in and started helping manage both properties. It gave me purpose and company without chaos. As for the old property Claire had once lived in, I sold it to a logging company. 2 of my Amish neighbors ran it. They cleared the hardwood, harvested the white pine, and flipped the land for a solid profit. I even worked with them from time to time. Manual labor, hands in the dirt. It was oddly therapeutic. I never saw Claire face to face again, but I kept an eye on things. She stayed in that modest house she bought in town. No visitors. No visible new relationships. It was as if she'd chosen to live in quiet solitude, just like me. Maybe guilt finally caught up to her. Maybe not. Either way, I didn't need closure from her anymore. While I hadn't dated seriously, I wasn't entirely alone. The Amish community, in their own quiet matchmaking way, kept introducing me to English women, friends of friends, visitors, or local spinsters. 2 sisters, both kind and grounded, started visiting. We had a rhythm. One or the other would spend a weekend here every month. They both knew about each other. It wasn't a secret. No one was misled. It was simple, honest. Recently, I asked if they'd consider moving in, sharing this strange but peaceful life I'd built. They're still thinking about it. But I'm hopeful. What matters most is that I reclaimed my peace. I lost a marriage, yes, but I gained clarity, freedom, and control. Claire betrayed me, but she didn't break me. I walked away from that life, not out of weakness, but out of strength. And now, I live exactly how I choose, unnoticed, unbothered, and finally free. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us create more content like this.